Hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and this time for a special episode, I'm joined by four friends of mine who work, well, they're going to all explain to you now what their jobs are and how they work in the industry of media and podcasting. First of all, to my friend Benjamin Field.
Hi, I'm Benjamin Field. I'm the CEO of Deep Fusion Films based in the UK, and we were responsible for the Virtually Parkinson podcast, which launched at the start of the year. But I work across AI and the intersection of AI at media level, working on policy and legislation with the UK government.
Okay, and William?
My name's William Corbin. I'm the Chief AI Officer at Inception Point AI. We're responsible for the 4,000 plus podcasts that we've generated from AI and some 200,000 episodes that has caused a bit of a stir. So happy to be here.
Indeed. John?
John McDermott, co-founder Caloroga Shark Media. We make podcasts, and we also use AI and humans in a mix, and we'll get into that.
And I'm Mark Francis. I'm the second employee at Caloroga Shark Media, co-founder along with John.
Okay, so I wonder if people can guess, although the title will give it away at the top of the screen or on your feed anyway. I wonder what you can guess the subject is about this special episode. Yep, we're talking about the use of artificial intelligence in making podcast for the most part, but touching on other areas of media as well. Where do you think we are now in the world of podcasting with the use of artificial intelligence, John?
Everybody's using it. The people who aren't using it are lying. The question becomes, how much are you using it? Now it can go anywhere from helping to focus thoughts. I think everyone's using, everyone's a little strong. Many people are using it for show notes. Slightly fewer people are using it for artwork. You may have an AI write part of a script, help you write a script, an entire script. You may have an AI voice your script. We sure do. We'll talk about that. Or you may have a situation where someone's using it end to end, and I'll let the others talk about that. But I imagine most of the industry is using it at least somewhat at this point.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, both when William spoke with me on Pods Like Us, that episode's going to go out soon anyway. And when Jeanette was speaking on other shows, they both mentioned that there was a sort of Jeanette put it as an almost hypocrisy in a sense where people were going at them almost Inception point for the work that they do. And then suddenly when the recording stopped, Jeanette and William and people from Inception, and I think yourselves as well, Mark and John, have been suddenly asked, oh, how do you think I could use AI in my show? And there's almost that, you've got to admit, like John said, we're using it for various different things. So that's what I was trying to get across with this chat with ours, is that there are good things in the use of AI.
Yeah, if I may, one of the discussions, the late Todd Cochran would often talk about, I don't want any AI used on my shows. And I would think about things like Descript. Every single day, I use shorten word gaps. It saves me, when I record daily comedy news, it might save me 75 edits. Now, I could make the edits. I do check the edits. I don't put anything out I haven't listened to. I tighten everything up manually. But boy, one click, shorten word gaps is a great thing to use. Remove retakes is a great thing to use. All this is AI. Do I need to flag that show was created with the help of AI because I shortened my word gaps? I'm happy to. Sure.
I mean that's another subject that's going around at the moment, and I know that Sam Sethi has mentioned this in Pod News Weekly Review of the having an option there where you state that a show is created with AI, and it's almost like a just something that shows up as a thing. But I think that's a tricky one because using AI is different to different degrees. If you're using it to write to help with the collation of your show notes or with something else in the background, admin wise, is completely different to having AI create a show. Don't you think, Mark or Ben?
I mean, the only thing I was going to say in there was that from a policy perspective, obviously the EU AI Act has a piece of advice on this, or stronger than advice, it's coming in next year, which is that anything that is made, any form of entertainment or media that is public facing, that is made with AI, needs to have transparency over it that it was made with AI. Now, obviously, that is something that dictates what can be shown or played out in the EU. But of course, anything that's made in the US and is played in the EU will have to comply with that. Now, how that's going to be implemented and sort of managed is anyone's guess. But actually, the breadth, and I think it's Article 15 of the EU AI Act, I think, but I could easily be wrong on that. So probably best to get ChatGPT to check it for me. But if we could, when you look at that, that's actually too broad, because what we're finding is that having to put on, exactly as you were saying, John, the fact that you've used AI to remove gaps, actually you're sort of putting doubt in the minds of your audience, actually what is real and what isn't. So I completely understand that there does need to be a level of transparency for where we are right now, because the industry is in, audiences and the industry are in a state of flux, and there is concern over what AI means for the future of entertainment or the future of jobs, which is actually what it actually boils down to. Is it's a fear of losing one's ability to earn. But that means that the rules that are coming in, unfortunately, are a little bit too broad, and they're a little bit too knee-jerk, because there is nuance necessary in the conversation that is currently missing.
Yeah, just to go off of what Benjamin said, I totally agree, because there was, I forget what country it was, that had a quick knee-jerk rule. It's no AI in media. An X-ray is media, and AI is saving lives in a lot of cases in the medical world. So and then they had to pull back. Oh, no, medical imaging's fine. So I think I said this to Martin. I think a lot of the discussion we're having currently in 2 years, we'll look back on and be like, God, can you believe we were debating this or discussing this? Because it is going to be so ubiquitous. And we always disclose that we try to always disclose that all of our, not all of them, but the podcasts that are end-to-end AI, we don't just disclose it. We almost proudly put it out there as a badge, because those podcasts wouldn't exist had it not been for AI. They're just economically not feasible for a human to do. We actually cover the EU AI Act daily. For somebody to set up a microphone and record a quick bit about that for 3 minutes, they'd be losing so much money, but people listen to that podcast. And I would hate to prohibit somebody from getting that content where they want it just because somebody's mad that we're using AI.
I mean, I think that's really important, is that what you're focusing on there is, and we're doing similar with some of the work that we're doing, is that you're focusing on a niche area. Now, for niche areas, the digital landscape is absolutely perfect for niche content, because in order for something to be made, it either needs to be commissioned. Either way, it needs financing. Now, whether or not that's personal finance from the podcaster or from a network that is paying for it to exist, it needs to be financed. And what people don't necessarily always understand is the fact that the commissioning landscape is always about risk mitigation. So it is all about making sure that you get the most amount of eyeballs on for your buck, for your dollar, for your pound, whatever it is. You need to absolutely make sure that that is generating revenue from somewhere. And it is very difficult to generate revenue if what you've got is an overhead. And especially within podcasting, it's fair to say. So if you're making niche content that wouldn't exist otherwise, then that is additive to the sphere. It isn't reductive. It's not the fact that would be taking a job away from somebody else, because actually in the real world, that job would never have existed. So it is additive. Now, I'm not suggesting that is the case for every AI podcaster out there, and I'm sure that there are some ones that are passing off as genuine and you just wouldn't know, and it's covering topics that would otherwise be covered by a human. But I can absolutely see that the digital world is perfect for niche content.
Yeah. You mentioned Sam and James and their show and their argument over AI tagging.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And what they had mentioned, Sam had mentioned that I want to put an AI tag on everything and filter it out, and people be able to see that this show contains AI. And James was against that argument. But it comes down to what percentage or how much AI you are using in it, and just being transparent with that use. On our website, we say we're an AI podcasting company. We're very open about what we do. We jumped on this a couple of years ago when we formed the company, because we're two guys and we want to put out a business. We want to make a business. We want to make money. And to be two people with two voices, you can't do 40 shows. So we have to dive into AI and the voices available to us and the other tools available to us to produce these shows. But we have a very human element behind ours and our AI production. We write the shows, we edit the shows, we add sound design and music, and we add effects and show scripts and artwork. If a show is 90% done by a human, but you add an AI voice to it, it suddenly becomes taboo, even though it's one very small percentage of AI in that show. And that's where I think we're finding a bit of trouble, is being labeled as an AI slop or that kind of show just because the voice is AI. So what we do now is we put a lot of effort into our voices as well. And I think you'll find if you go to Caloroga Shark and you listen to a few shows, you're going to find them sounding very human. They're very tweaked and they're very massaged, and we put a lot of work into them. But it's that if you do 90% of your work with AI on a show and 10% is your voice, how does that make your show better than the 90% human we put into ours?
It's misinformation, isn't it? Is that people listen to, or they hear the term AI and they sort of assume that AI is not artificial intelligence but autonomous intelligence. And they assume that there's no craft or skill involved in curating a show that has AI in it. Whereas actually the ones that I find to be the best are actually where you're using all of the tools at your disposal. There was an article in Forbes recently saying that 95% of all AI pilots have failed, and is that the end of the AI bubble? Has it burst? And in my mind, I looked at that and went, thank God for that, because actually the bit that is causing that 95% failure is because everybody thinks they're now an expert, which isn't that the internet in a nutshell, of course. But, everybody thinks they're an expert just because they can create 5 seconds of something on an AI platform. No, that is not where the craft and the skill comes. In order to get audience retention, you need to understand what it is to build an audience in the first place. How do you build that show? And that isn't something you can get from just sticking something into a prompt. The worry, of course, that people have is that is the destination. That is where we're going, is that AI will eventually be able to craft it without human intervention. And let's be honest, one day it might get there. And if it does, then great. But humans, as a creative sort of industry, if you like, in order for all of the jobs to be wiped out of the creative sector, that would require a level of passivity that has hitherto been unknown for the creative sector, because everybody who's in it is not in it to roll over and die. They're in it because they'll look at something and go, oh, look, a new way of expressing myself. So it'll be involving all of these new tools that come out. But in exactly the same way as you, John and Mark, you've looked at that and gone, right, I want to create all these podcasts, but we are just two people. What is the best way for us to be able to create all these? You're doing all of the grunt work and putting the research in and whatever tools you're using in order to do that. But in order to make this work for your audience, you're not just using your voices, you're making them bespoke to the content you're making. So I think to call that AI slop is wholly unfair.
Yeah, I get mad at the AI slop term, and I have a couple proof points of where it really upsets me. I actually did 2 podcasts that I wrote and hosted for almost 2 years. Every single morning I would wake up and lead a morning meditation podcast. One of the comments said, I really love the content, but your voice annoys me. I switched to an AI voice and I saw 7 times increase in listeners. So I improved the experience for all the people that were listening every morning. And like the comments that came in when I switched to the AI voice, people saying thank you. And another one that I switched, I saw 3x increase called I Am GPT, which was about GPT. And I love the stat that 95% of all AI will be gone. It's like saying if 95% fails, it'll be gone, is akin to 9 out of 10 restaurants fail in the first year. That doesn't mean restaurants will cease to exist. The
100%.
ones that are good will work. And I also feel that humans will always be creative, and human creativity will always be of value. Just because AI exists and AI is creating doesn't diminish the human creativity. And it won't eliminate human creative jobs. It can only amplify those potential for that human creativity and expand it. We will lose jobs. Every new technology loses jobs, but it creates jobs, hopefully.
It loses job roles.
Yeah.
I think is the thing. It's an evolution of the employment sector. It's not a revolution of it.
Yeah, I would say 10 years ago, I never would have thought I could go to a mall and find an iPhone repair shop. And that was a job that did not exist. Creating the iPhone, jobs were lost and jobs were created. So I think if take a holistic view, we don't know how it's going to play out, but there will be new jobs and there will be jobs eliminated.
Something I'm interested in is that, so I mean, because obviously I work across the TV and film sector as well as the podcast sector, looking at the entertainment industry sort of fairly holistically. One of the things that comes out across the board is actually about development. What AI is particularly good at is about sort of fast turnaround, iterations of content where you are testing out new formats. I'm interested, William, with the stuff that you're making, because obviously you're, I think it's fair to say that's particularly high volume and fast turnaround. How much of that are you doing to test the water out on things that are then worth putting more time in? And how much of that is just, let's just spam it? And I'm aware that that's an antagonistic phrase to use, and I'm sort of doing it intentionally, but I'm interested.
When we initially started out, our thought was create as wide a net as possible to get data points to then focus in on. And when people are like, oh, you spam by doing 5,000 podcasts, my machine could have done 2 million podcasts. If I really wanted to spam, I could. But the digital world exists in a way that if you like Wikipedia, nobody calls that spam. Amazon has 620 million products. That's a lot of URLs. It's the only way you get found in search. And our whole premise was, can we create content that resonates in the search algorithm and gets found on very specific questions? In order to do that, you got to be like Craigslist, Wikipedia, eBay, Amazon. You have to create a lot of URLs. I would never say that the sweater my mom bought off of Amazon last week is slop. She likes it. I don't like it, but she loves it. And that's why people say, oh, you're creating slop by putting a lot of podcasts out there. The person who listens to the fishing report for Lake Tenkiller in Oklahoma, you might not like that podcast, but 300 people every single week do. So that's why I get averse to the slop term, because one person's slop is another person's shinola. It's beauty.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because
we did create a wide net, and we didn't continue making that net any wider because we had enough data points to then go after.
But that's still about human creativity, isn't it? Is that people equate volume to a lack of human control or creativity, but actually what it really is, it's just an economy of scale, which we've seen in every other industry, in every other sector. Yep. Is that in order to make money, which is of course what the entertainment industry has always been about, is generating money, but now we've found a different route in, and there is a democratization.
Create that system. We employed and paid a lot of people, and we pay our ecosystem builds a lot of jobs, I would say, in doing that.
There's also a kind of fear factor connotation behind the words AI for the 95% of people in the audience that doesn't really understand how much it is already in our lives.
Yeah.
And they're just afraid of what it's going to do to our lives. Excuse me. You all here and the people that are generally listening to this have a somewhat good understanding of how AI is being used in podcasting, whether it's good or bad. They know the tools that are out there and how to use them. Whereas if I talk to my friends and say, yeah, we put out this new podcast, we used AI in it, they'll go, oh my goodness, it's got to be bad. And there's a fear of not understanding the tools as well that are going into this production that people just generally don't understand.
Yep. And they're afraid of it.
I mean, equipment-wise, AI has been involved in various forms of media for years. I mean, I know personally, from my history of being a sound engineer back in the day, I know that we've used automated leveling for recording levels when we mix music, and that's done by AI and has been done now for nearly 40 years that we've done that. In the mid-80s that first came in. So that's been there anyway. And the same with making television shows and films. There's AI technology that's been there to help with the editing and those sorts of things as well. Like you said, it's been involved in media for a good while now. People just didn't know that, perhaps.
No, I was actually on the phone with some execs at Spotify, and we were talking about AI and podcasting and music, and they said it's really hard to ban AI music because then auto-tune would be included. And when you look at all the number one hits that use auto-tune, do you ban those also? Because you're right, AI technology has existed. It just wasn't.
Yeah, look at all the synthetic instrumentation behind the music.
Oh, it would all have to go away. If we tried to going outside of media, people want to ban AI. Your cars won't drive, your planes won't fly. So many things will not work. And I love that people trust it to do certain things, but they won't let it make a podcast. Come on.
I think part of the concern is that people are worried about layoffs. Now, Mark and I have not laid anyone off. William, from what I've read from your company, I don't believe you've laid anyone off.
No,
so these are tools that are allowing us to build things that wouldn't otherwise exist. And I think that gets lost in the messaging. And Benjamin, you talked about this earlier. Yesterday, I made 2.5 weeks of our trivia show because I had some free time and needed to make some more episodes. Could I voice it? I could. I do believe that, much like William said, the AI that reads our trivia sounds better than I would. If I don't read it and AI doesn't read it, then Mark has to read it. I always get on my soapbox that resources include time, humans, money, and we only have so much time and so many humans. So I have an AI read you, hey, before Jimmy Fallon hosted the Tonight Show, what late night TV show did he host? And an AI voices that. Is that breaking some implicit compact with the listener? I don't think so. But more importantly, I didn't lay off the trivia host and replace him with an AI.
Yeah, we actually just got contacted by a podcaster who does a 2-hour live podcast every night. You can imagine how hard that is. She has zero bandwidth left in her day. I'm amazed she can even pull that off as a one-person shop. But it's just not making enough. I want to support this. Could you help me replicate or amplify myself so an AI could do additional podcasts to support me continuing to do this because I love it. It's my passion. And there I view AI as almost not a crutch, but a way to help her continue to do what she loves to do, continue to provide something that people are finding of great value, and make the economics work.
I think all of this comes back to being in an industry which is financially struggling anyway. I think we have almost entered the perfect storm here, which is that the speed of improvement is something that we need to recognize. As we say, yes, AI has been involved in various industries, various sectors at various levels, but they've sort of been low lying. They haven't necessarily impacted what you see or hear. Because I mean, funnily enough, the entertainment industry has always been fixated with the humans in the role. They're not bothered about what cameras are being used and how many people have made the cameras and where those cameras are being made, and where's the microphone being made, which are all additional jobs that are supplementary to the ecosystem. But of course, over the last, let's say, 5 years since COVID, we've seen the industry has a massive downturn. And of course, actors and presenters have always been held in high regard. And the media industry has always been slightly safeguarded from technological advancements. It's not like the automotive industry where workers were decimated some 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. We're now in an era where, now technology has come for entertainment. And of course, that seems to have had some kind of visceral effect on audiences where you go, oh my God, if they come for the actors, they'll come for me as well. Because historically, they've always been on a pedestal somewhere. They're untouchable. The the silver screen and so on. So I think it's brought it home to people that actually if the actors are worried that it's going to come for their jobs and they're untouchable, actually, what does that mean for me? And so we've hit this point where AI now dominates every news story, but actually it's AI dominating the entertainment sector that is actually taking the news headlines.
Yeah, technology has always gone after the actors. The stage actors, they freaked out when the movie and broadcasting came about. Then even the movie actors freaked out when the audio, when it went from the silent to talkies. There was a huge backlash against it. Yeah. I think the backlash is, I get it, I understand it. I can't say I know exactly where it's coming from, but I do understand it. But I always say, just be patient. I think at the end of this, you will find it can create possibly more roles for actors. Who knows?
I think if you're someone like a copywriter, then you need to evaluate your position now, because copywriters will become extinct unless you pick up AI skills in being an AI master at copywriting. You're going to see a lot of those low entry level positions done by people who understand AI better and know how to use the tools. 10 copywriters may become one chief AI copywriter executive.
Except for the fact that actually the amount of work that can be, I mean, what we're talking about is efficiency generators, isn't it? So now actually what we're entering into a point is where more things can be done. And so therefore we are becoming more creative and creating more output, which means that actually there is, in the case of you, William, you're saying actually there's 4,000 more shows being made or 5,000 more shows being made that all need to be checked at some point by somebody who goes through QC. Now that means that those, exactly as you're saying, those roles that would have traditionally been involved in copywriting, for instance, are now not going to be copywriting one show for 2-3 days or whatever it was. They're now going to be checking the output of an LLM against the copy and saying, right, okay, yes, that's fine, and they'll get through 10 a day. But I tell you what, if it, as an employer, if I can find somebody who knows how to check 10 scripts a day, I will absolutely employ that person to do that, right, against somebody who takes 10 days to do it. And the same is true. So we have a transcription translation service called Verbal. And I promise you this is not an advert. Otherwise, I'd have done a jingle. But we are now doing dubbing and translation for TV, film, podcasts, if you like, for a number of people. But I need somebody who will go out and actually read those translations and transcriptions and make sure that they are accurate. Now, we are able to provide that as a service at a cost that would have been otherwise prohibitive. This is now shows that are being translated into multiple languages, which would never have been translated before because they just wouldn't have been able to afford it. The economy around reversion content wasn't sustainable to be able to go through that model and hire people of that native language to dub it and go into the studio and all the rest of it. However, they can afford to have these TV programs from films be translated into other languages via an AI-assisted service. And then as part of that system, we have a human in the loop who goes and reads all the transcripts and makes any amendments that need to be made and then outputs it again. And so what we're finding is that AI across the board is providing new opportunity. But what's really important is, and I think everybody is missing this, and I'd be really interested to know from the rest of you, is anybody doing anything that is completely autonomous? Or are you all employing somebody? Because we've found so when Virtually Parkinson came out at the start of the year to now, we've grown from a team of 3 to a team of 12. Because actually, we are now being inundated with requests to do more with less. And these are all people being employed on a pretty good salary. And they're all full-time employed. It's not short-term contracts. I mean, all right, I think we've got one on a short-term contract, but these are good salaries. And so what we're finding is that with the digital market, we're saying that good quality content will rise to the top, or the economy of scale will mean that shows that have a niche capability, niche levels of interest will find their audiences, but you need more of them in order to generate the same kind of money. Which means that if we can create shows, whatever it is, at scale, then we can provide for this new digital landscape in a way that we couldn't do before. So this is about a shift in the industry, not about a complete revolution of it.
We do have some fully autonomous. It takes a human to create it. And we're hiring copywriters. We just call them, it's the modern version of it, prompt authors. The modern copywriter is a prompt author. And we need every single prompt author we can possibly find. The more prompt authors we get, the more content we create. And even in the autonomous, there is still humans. I need a human, even on our autonomous, constantly QCing these things. And then once the bug is found, we require a prompt author to remedy it. We try to remedy everything in the prompt, not in the system itself, just because it makes our lives easier at the end of the day. But
William, correct me if I'm wrong, but I recall one of your interviews, or one of you from the company, saying that you do no human QC on most of your shows. Nobody's listening back.
At a certain point, and I'll give you an example of why the human Q, where it will actually end, and there will still be spot human QC checks. So if I do a report on, or a tracker on the NVIDIA stock tracker, and then that we let that go for a little while, it gets an audience, it seems to be working, and then we'll say, let's pick 30 more stocks. And then we're using a prompt that we know is bulletproof to some extent. And we have a data source that we know is reliable. Like when we do weather, we're going to the exact same weather source as every other weatherman. And I would argue now our AI makes less errors in telling you the weather than most local weathermen will do in a given week. But so that it only becomes truly autonomous after it has been sort of tried and true, and things still go wrong. We'll get dropouts for 5 seconds here. There's just things that can go wrong, like in life.
I think it's valuing humans, though, isn't it? That's the thing. It's valuing the human in the loop, because there's a skill to what you're doing. There's a skill in prompt generation. There's a skill in QCing, even if just for the first 30 episodes. What you're doing is you're building a model that works, and that is a skilled job. So what we ought to be doing is championing the skills that are coming out of this, rather than purely focusing on the output, which seems like a slightly weird thing to say. But I'm sure we'll get onto AI actors in inverted commas towards the end of this chat, I'm sure. But again, what we're looking at there is we're focusing. I think we're focusing almost on the wrong end of the AI conversation, which is that we're looking at the output and going, "Oh, it's automated. It's all easy. It's all rubbish. It's all AI slop." Whereas actually, we need to be focusing the other way and going, actually, there's some real skill going into making these, or the successful ones. There is real skill, and as we are so early on in the life cycle of AI, this is going to be around for a long, long time, folks. And there is going to be a learning curve that takes place in this arena. And we have to recognize that there is going to be growth, and early adopters are allowed to get it wrong, but we are going to grow, and that skill set is going to prove very, very valuable.
William, I have a question again, and I'd like to point out to the audience, and I'd like to thank all of you. This has been calm. Nobody's screaming. Nobody's talking over each other. One of the concerns I've had is, in a universe where infinite AI is making an infinite number of podcasts, we will drive the programmatic advertising down to zero. Earlier in this conversation, you talked about having the ability to make more and choosing not to. I'd just be curious your thoughts on at what point are all of us making too much content that we've accidentally destroyed the market?
Great question. I always revert back to one of my early starts was I was a founding member of CBS Interactive, creating websites. And I heard somebody say, "You're going to break the internet. The internet can't be broken." And anybody who knows anything about the internet knows it can be broken very easily in the way that people think it can be broken, but it just can't. I don't see a universe in which there are so many podcasts that programmatic advertising gets diminished at all. I just think that you're creating more inventory. And our inventory doesn't get sold out today. The programmatic advertised, and we're taking as much programmatic advertising as we could take. There just isn't enough to support every show out there today. So programmatics will tend to go where they're getting the clicks and generating actually sales. And I can tell you, my pollen report probably generates sales for Zyrtec. It's hitting the person at the right time. My fishing report, I guarantee, sells some lures for Bass Outfitters. It's everybody. The sponsorship model, which is what media relied on, the broadcast industry. The reason it broke is the shows just got too expensive to create, that the sponsor dollars didn't equate. I didn't create that problem. There is more content out in the world than sponsors willing to sponsor the content.
And so it feels to me like it's a little bit like the Spotify analogy, which is that, so I did a panel with a guy from Spotify, I think 12 months ago, who was very excited by AI. And he was saying that it's going to be the democratization all over again. Everybody has access to make new content. And to some degree that is true. And that speaks to the Forbes argument that actually there is still craft and skill at the heart of that. And so you need to have that craft and skill. But, just because everybody can now make songs at home and release albums doesn't necessarily mean that there's too much music around. It just means that audiences need to find their niche, and music will find them when they're interested in it. That's the algorithmic sort of way that works. And then in terms of ad spend and ad revenue, what you're looking at there is sort of tantamount to the influencer model through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, which is about impressions and click rates and being able to prove that you are able to get the audience. Just because the content exists doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's going to start putting ads all over it. So I think that there's more to it than just the content existing. I mean, if you go on TikTok or any other channel, there is so much content on there that's probably never been seen by more than 5 people because the content isn't relevant to anybody. Whereas if you can make good quality content, which again goes back to the human creativity, human skill at the foreground of it, even if it's then produced by AI afterwards, there is some human ingenuity in there, then that is where value will be found.
Yep. And I would say if we have a podcast that doesn't get listeners, it goes away. The stuff that doesn't have an audience, we'll get rid of. And programmatic, any website can click and have Google programmatic ads run on it. Will the ads run for every single page? No. But they will run when they're working and they get that audience and get a click. So I would find as long as our stuff gets audience and people are going to the advertisers, we're going to take the programmatic. And we have a lot of sponsors calling us. So we're doing something right.
I mean, when I was talking with William, I'll just get this out here because I know it's something that some people have picked up on because they knew this chat was coming on. Some other podcasters have listened to some of the shows and this, that, and the other. So we'll touch on this where when I spoke with William, I was talking about some glitches here and there, wasn't I, William, and pointed them out to you. And you were saying that you were going to go to the people who help with the who helped to bring this stuff out, and you're going to look at how those glitches are coming about, like the bits of programming code and that are coming out in the programs that are noticeable, and seeing how you can iron out those problems and get the QC a lot better because of that. And it's because of the fact that you've got this feedback that you're now looking to doing that.
Yep. Yeah, it's quality control has been something that has been top of mind since the very beginning. It's something that as we continue to automate, we want to be able to automate that as much as possible. Ultimately, there does have to be some human involved. At least we have not found a way to eliminate the human from quality. And I think it's in any content creator, quality is always top of mind. If you watch season 1 of something that gets 10 seasons, and you having had a show that had 10 seasons, looking back at the pilot episode or season 1, I cringe. I'm like, oh my God, it's just so bad compared to season 10 because you only improve as you continue to create more and you continue to get more successful. You get better cameras, you get better tech, you get better actors. It just content evolves. And that's one of the things, especially iterative content in the digital world. We specifically are playing in the digital world. And we chose that because you do have the iterative nature and you have the ability to learn from every mistake and learn from every success. So
the cost of taking risks is much lower.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, we can take 1,000 at bats. The old movie model was reliant on hits. So you could only take very few at bats, and you could only produce things that you were pretty sure were going to be mass appeal. I don't care about the masses. I find I'm more interested in a person who's interested in quilting with alpaca thread or alpaca fur. That excites me a lot more than a blockbuster Marvel movie. And I'll watch the blockbuster Marvel movie, but I will also listen to or subscribe to the TikTok channel that talks about using alpaca for yarn. And that's I love llamas.
As does my wife, but I'm yet to find a TikTok channel that satiates her love for llamas. But when
give me
when you
3
find
minutes and I'll have one up.
But actually, what you talk to there is that risk mitigation, or the need for a risk mitigation, which is currently still very prevalent within the TV and film sector. So the podcast industry has been able to adopt an AI native approach, I suppose, even if it's just a thought process. And it's not everybody is doing what you're doing of automating everything, but it's still AI native in its thoughts, because audio generation was one of the first things to come out within AI that was successful, or it crossed the quality threshold. We're still not necessarily all the way there with visuals, although we are getting better every day.
So, yeah, the reason why I mentioned that there is the point I was saying about quantity over quality, and it sort of sorts itself out in a sense. That what we're saying, really. Yeah. Right.
Sorry, Martin. I was just going to say. I think that works for cases where. So, William, I apologise. I probably should have done, but I don't actually know what podcasts you put out at scale. But I imagine they're fairly fast turnaround and things that are probably not going to be sort of be hugely offensive, as you say, with llama wool and knitting techniques and the Weather Channel. So not QCing those or allowing 30 episodes to go out and then realizing that actually they're fine and they're all pretty safe is fine. So I imagine that your docs are all kind of in that vein, because otherwise you'd need to QC them for making sure that they're safe.
Yeah, we do not touch any subject like hard news. We're not going to talk about the war in Ukraine or anything where we could potentially have a fact wrong or something that would mislead somebody. And in the past, when we were casting the big wide net, some of those probably came up, and we quickly realized that is not a space that we want to play in. We try to do things that can be replicable across multiple markets, highly localized, highly niche information. That's the stuff that we've found is definitely the most popular of our podcast. We do a lot of biographies, and AI is great at writing a biography. And then we realized that AI is not just good at writing a biography, but if the person's alive, let's update it every week. So AI has allowed us to literally create almost living biographies, where humans to do that would just be too cost prohibitive. And people subscribe to those biographies. And if you love Justin Bieber, it's great. You subscribe, and every week, without knowing, or every 3 days, you get a new update on what the Biebs has done. Now, I also ran interactive for A&E Biography Channel and Military History Channel, so I love biographies. That's why I did it. That's the other thing. All the content we do, some human selects the title. AI will generate a gazillion titles for us, and some human actually says, "Oh, that interests me," and they pull that title, and then that becomes a podcast.
Yeah, I can see how that works.
So,
we would have 2 million podcasts.
So, that shows the big difference between what Inception Point are doing with yourself, William, and your team, and what Mark and John are doing with Caloroga, where, for instance, you've got the Taylor Swift show that I think is it Mark that's mainly behind the Taylor Swift show? Yeah, and that's different.
It's strangely in the whole Taylor Swift universe, it does well, but you would expect that show to have 1 million downloads just through osmosis. But it does well, and I use AI to look at the stories of the week to make something fun and cohesive out of it. And then I use an AI voice of a 15-year-old girl to read it because it would sound really kind of bad with me reading the Taylor Swift update. Kind of creepy. So when you're reaching out to try and do shows that are way outside your capabilities, that's where it can be a valuable tool. But in the end, I still listen back to the shows, and I edit the shows, and I produce them, and I put sound underneath them, and I get the social media hubs involved, and there's a lot of human behind it.
It's funny. We used to actually take all of our shows and put sound and everything under them. And then one day I was listening to one of my all-time favorite podcasts, Lex Friedman. He doesn't have any sound. And so we tried some of the shows without sound beds, and we found they did as well as shows with sound beds. But then on certain topics, exact opposite. If we have a sound bed under, they do well. And Taylor Swift is, everybody knows she's a phenom. But what really shocks me about AI is we built an engine to help us in thinking of titles. We built the ability for it to predict, and it made the craziest prediction way back when it told us to do a podcast about two football brothers, Jason and Travis. 2 weeks later, one of them started dating Taylor Swift. And who knew? But the AI had some prescient that, hey, these guys are popular. So
with your oh no, he's gone.
He's gone.
He's dropped off. Oh, he's come back.
He's back.
There we go. So with your shows that work on an economy of scale, to what extent would it be fair to say that you're sort of putting out content that is good enough, but not necessarily of a superior sort of editorial quality? Is there a point where you just go, actually, this is okay for the market, and you leave it at that, or do you pride yourself on every episode that goes out?
I would say we pride ourselves on every episode that goes out. As of lately, when we started out, where the AI was in content creation as well as image generation, like if I look back at some of our old show artwork where we actually said, do this in the style of an impressionist painting, and they look so bad. A human would actually have to put the lettering on because Dolly couldn't do lettering. And it was this horrible Arial font. I mean, it just looks bad. But we thought whoever created thought it was good. And I don't think we ever said, oh, this is good enough. We always want it to be as good as it can possibly be. And a lot of times, some of our podcasts, it didn't even have an audio intro, no music at the beginning. Now we have the capability to put music at the beginning, and we actually have our signature sign off at the end of a lot of shows. So as the evolution goes, the quality is improving greatly because we do endeavor to have the highest quality we can possibly.
That's an interesting phrase, though, isn't it? The highest quality you can possibly get.
Yes.
Which is that if you're producing 4,000 episodes, you can't possibly listen to them all. So at what point do you trade? Is there a trade-off of going, right, I can't get it any better because we are producing at such a scale that humans can't be involved in the loop at every point?
So we will still even improve quality on the ones that have been automated. Because what we'll do is in a spot check, or somebody will say, hey, you know what, let's redo all the cover arts for those because now we can get great font lettering. We can actually have people looking forward, silhouette, so we call it remastering. We have a whole team that spends their entire days just looking at old podcasts and saying we can improve those. Now, I'll be honest, they tend to focus on the ones that get a lot of listens and then go down.
Naturally, yeah, of course.
So, and sometimes things will bubble up and all of a sudden we'll be like, oh, we have a hit, what we call a hit. And we'll be like, let's get in and remaster those. We did podcasts because we realized a lot of people in this country don't know about the cabinet positions, the history of the cabinet positions, who holds those cabinet positions, and then ongoing what's happening on a weekly basis with those. We put them out. They weren't getting much. This new administration came in. They started to really bubble up. The team was on them. They remastered them all. And so yes, every day I can say there's at least one person looking at our entire catalog and saying what can be improved, what can be remastered. They'll be like, oh, that doesn't have the audio signature at the end. Let's get it on the end of all of those.
How big is your catalog now?
It's 5,000 plus. We've created 5,000. I'd have to tell you the actual show count that's live today, probably in the 4,300 range. We're well over 200,000 episodes total.
So the impression that came out in all these stories was that you were making 3,000 a week.
We drop about 3,000 episodes a week because we have that many dailies. So like a stock tracker, 5 days a week, I'm doing a new episode. The weather, 5 days a week, a new episode. Daily fishing report. I'll be honest, when we originally launched the daily fishing report, it wasn't daily. It was every other day. Then we saw it go, and so we did daily.
So you mentioned your hits. Is there, without telling us your most popular, but what you think is one of your greatest series that you think would be award-winning that we could listen to that isn't the llama wool episode?
Don't write the llama wool episode off. I'm still holding on to that.
I love the fishing reports because I fish. I also love our ski reports and surf reports. We have so an example of where AI gives somebody something that be really hard for a human. You can get a surf radio and it'll tell you the surf report for Los Angeles. We go as granular now as El Porto, a single break, and 6 a.m. every morning that drops, and it's the El Porto surf report. Check it out. It's one of my favorites, and I think it is amazing because what AI is doing is taking the text feed from NOAA, which is arcane. No human could understand what that text feed means. It's like in aviation terminology, weather terminology, and it makes it actually into a really fun, interesting podcast. Space weather is one of our biggest hits, and that's just telling you what's going on in low Earth orbit. And I can tell by geolocation of listeners, it's wherever Elon Musk has launches, because they need to know what's going on in the space weather. Is it a massive audience? Nope. Is it a good enough audience? Yep. And is it great content? I would say it is awesome content. We have one that follows the James Webb Telescope. I love that one. I'm a total space geek, as you can tell. So yeah, surf reports, our fishing reports. I think our biography flashes are great because it allows you to engage with somebody you love and continue to learn about their life as they go on through life. And you can find any of those, just type biography flash, and we have a lot come up. We're in the process of remastering those, so you're going to see some old artwork because there's 800 of them. So we're about 200 in remastering. We have about 600 to go. The remastering is a very human intensive process.
And I think John would agree with me that at Caloroga Shark, we would have no problem submitting 75% of our shows for an award. Yep. And we think that storytelling and the design and the originality and the elements behind it all are that good.
Yeah, I would submit a lot of ours.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would submit a lot of ours for an award. I mean, we have a lot of shows that rank in Apple charts in their categories. We had the #1 sports news podcast for 17 weeks running. That was beating Boomer Esiason, ESPN, all the humans. That was about the dating life of the Kelsey brothers. But, because the categories, as you guys know, it's often hard to find a category that really fits a niche podcast. So society and documentary, we have a lot in. But yeah, we have, I would say, probably 100 to 150 shows that are charting in Apple and Spotify on any given week.
I better get this in. Sam Sethi contacted me and he said to ask you all, he said, Gary V said in the future that the norm may be an AI podcast co-host. When will AI not be seen as a bad thing or podcasting or video, but a good thing? We already have AI actresses and actors. See, so what do you think?
Do we actually have AI actors already? I mean, just because you call something an AI actor does not necessarily mean that it is. I mean, let's address that for a moment, which is so we are obviously skirting around the Tilly Norwood conversation. To announce that Tilly Norwood is an AI actor, I think is unfortunate at best, because really what you're to be an actor, and Aline at Particle 6 who created Tilly Norwood was an actor, I'm led to believe, and as was I in my younger years. And I think to refer to an AI generated image, which is essentially what Tilly is, albeit if you've built some kind of characterization into it, that is not an actor. That is a character. It's the same way as saying that Homer Simpson is a character. It doesn't behave autonomously. It's got no soul. It can't understand subtext or text. It has no intuition. It can't present a text in a way that has any emotional resonance at all without being driven by a human in some capacity. And I think that there has been a backlash from Hollywood and others. And I can fully understand why there has been a backlash, because actually that is presenting something as something which is intrinsically human, which isn't. And I think that to position it as an actor, I think, is a misstep.
I would say position it as a Mickey Mouse more than an actor. You're right. Humans are actors. Tilly is a AI generated entertainer, an animated character, if you will.
It is. It's an extension to animated character, but that I think is. I mean, I would say that is a separate and an absolute distinction we should make between an AI sort of podcast host versus an actor, because a podcast host can in fact be in you don't have to be human to host a podcast, whereas you do have to be human to be an actor.
I do think there could be a future with AI co-hosts on podcasts. About a year ago, I did an experiment on Daily Comedy News. I used Audio Hijack and recorded an audio interaction. I don't want to call it a conversation, an audio interaction with ChatGPT. And the topic was, who are the top 10 comedians? And Chat would throw out a name, and that allowed Human John to react to it. And then I took the Audio Hijack, I put it into Descript. I used AI to shorten all word gaps because there were a ton of word gaps. And I put that out. I told my audience what I was doing. It got a favorable reaction. And that was a year ago. But if we go out X years, there's probably a very workable version of that where I've trained a voice that I can bounce off and argue about the Mets game or whatever. And that could work.
Virtually Parkinson was in fact that. So Virtually Parkinson was that was the late great Sir Michael Parkinson, who is very well known in the UK, but not necessarily further afield, who was a chat show host in the UK from 70s through to the early 2000s. And we created, for the purpose of essentially a social experiment, a version of his voice, and allowed that voice to host a live unscripted chat show with celebrity guests in order to find out what happens between that interaction, to understand does the guest give more away or less away when essentially they're just talking to themselves in a room. And what became really interesting is that actually it became almost like a sort of therapy. It was that actually you'd have guests giving far more away than they ever would to a human, because there was no agenda. The AI was probing in a conversational way and trying to understand what the guest was saying, but it was doing so without an agenda. It wasn't trying to coax an answer out. It was just listening. And we found that to be a very, very interesting experience, and one which most of the guests found very lovely, with only one notable exception, probably, who didn't enjoy the experience at all.
But you were very transparent in the fact that this was an AI show and an experiment. The one line I draw on AI characters is personal endorsement or any third-party endorsement by an AI character, saying that this character has a history and a biography and has lived this life and can endorse this product because of the time spent with it, is a line we don't cross, certainly won't. And if you're going to draw any in the sand, that would be mine.
I agree. That's third rail. I have said publicly, though, I know how AI sounds because I use it every day. I suspect there is a notable, with a capital N, notable host using AI reads on their very, 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 very capital V, very popular podcast.
Yep, I would agree. I definitely hear a lot of host reads that are now AI. We're actually working with our gardening expert, Nigel Thistledown, because he's had so many people request to come on his show so that he will be able to interview people real time and real reaction. And they will, we've told everybody it's an AI. A lot of people, even though you say, "Hi, I'm Nigel, I'm an AI," they don't seem to hear that part. And their publicists write, "Can he be on your show?" And so we write back, "Okay, but just so you know, it's an AI they'll be talking to." And only, I would say, 10% of the people have then said no, but the other 90% are like, okay. I don't know if they really want publicity or if they're just into the idea of the experiment. Because I love the idea of like what you did with the virtual park. I just think that's so cool. I think the world needs more experimentation.
And that's what AI does, I think. I mean, that's where AI for me is particularly interested. We played with this, and I'm absolutely not sort of casting any aspersions on what you've done, William, at all. We looked at generating podcast output at scale, and we couldn't. We managed it in terms of the technical process, but we couldn't actually find a legitimate use case for doing it. I'm glad that you found niche output. Absolutely, I can see the value in that. I think
Nigel's value it's really interesting because his value, I've never planted a rose, but I can tell you the DNA structure of 18,000 species of them. And I've read every gardening book published.
Yeah, I think for niche content, absolutely. I think where it falls down would be editorial. But as you say, you don't go in for editorial. But so we looked at it and went, yeah, okay, that's probably not for us. But what's really interesting is I think that AI can generate new experiences. And for me, that is the most exciting thing, is the fact that without AI, we wouldn't have been able to do virtually Parkinson. Without AI, John, Mark, you wouldn't be able to generate the content that you're making because of the way that you're working. And so that would change things. We're then writing our own software to create new experiences that physically wouldn't be able to. Exactly your point, William. Nigel Thistledown, which absolutely should be a Bridgerton character, should be the fact that they are capable, or it is capable, of giving information from such a vast resource library is valuable in and of itself, because humans couldn't do that, or very unlikely that a human would be able to do that and also be able to converse on a podcast about it in a way that is eloquent. So I think there is actual added value that AI can bring, and it's not just reductive. And I think to call it reductive or purely reductive, I think is again a misstep.
Its ability to be unbiased is one of the things that I think people sort of do gravitate to. There's so many opinions in this world. And I got involved in AI in 2019 with a company called Maslow that was working to build something, because children have a really hard time talking to humans and adults, where they can easily talk to a computer all day, truly share and get therapeutic advice based on that. And that's something I think humans fail to understand often, is that people sometimes have a better experience talking to a machine than they do another human.
Although we do need to, you mentioned the word bias there, we do have to recognize that the training data that goes into these systems is built on purely historic data, because that's obviously the nature of things, which means that actual bias is intrinsic, is inherently part of all of those training systems. So we as producers do have a responsibility to ensure that our output does not repeat those biases, because society has moved on from the 1970s or 1980s when actually the material that has been ingested into training data was generated. So opinions that are rehashed into could in fact be propagating bias that is harmful. So we do have a responsibility on our output. We can't just say, oh, AI said it, so it's okay. I mean, I do think that would be one of the concerns I would have of generating 4,000 hours worth of content and not having a human QCing every hour of it, is that you can't actually legitimately say, I'm fully across everything that it says, and I know that nothing it says is harmful.
I would agree. Although there are new LLMs like AlphaGo and things that aren't trained on any human data. And when if the data source is clean and just facts, it doesn't put its opinion over that. is what I mean by lack of bias.
Are yours built on AlphaGo?
No, but we train them. We point them to data sources where it's like weather. That's a fact.
Yeah, you can't argue with weather. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Although in the UK, obviously, we can argue with weather all the time because it's always rubbish. Which seems like a really opportune moment for me to duck out of this conversation, because it is now quite late over in the UK.
Just very quickly, so because it's been a question, what level are we at with AI for video? What sort of level is that at? Because I know Ben has had a lot of experience with this, and there was a really good video that he put up on Instagram about one specific instance of this.
Good. You might need to tell me which one that is, Martin, because I don't know what you're doing.
The AI, the person who's got it's a fake person, isn't it? That's got an account on they got a TikTok account or something, and it was actually a AI person.
Oh, yes. I mean, we are obviously moving to a point where AI visuals are becoming more hyper realistic. I don't think we're there in all counts at the moment, but certainly AI video is very good at creating videos from still images, because it uses the data that's already there. However, when you're creating an AI character from scratch, we're not quite at a point where it looks photorealistic yet. However, the point you're making is the fact that AI catfishing, which is essentially the thing, and borderline fraud, is sort of becoming more prolific online, with people generating social media characters and purporting to be real, and then attaching a GoFundMe page to something and saying, "Oh, actually, I'm going to go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro for my dead cat. Please, can you donate $10 to it?" And of course, none of it is real, because the AI character is not real, and it's all a facade. I think we again, as people in the know, I think we have a responsibility as producers and as fellow humans to point out where there is misinformation and falsities being generated. Again, we do need to be careful when we're generating voices for podcasts. We need to make sure that transparency is there, and that people know full well that they're not listening to a real person, because the human ear and the human eye needs to get used to questioning everything we see and hear. And what's interesting is the fact that people for the last 12 or 18 months have been saying that we need to put transparency of use over everything, and that's absolutely right. Right now we do, because we're still learning to question everything we're looking at. You could argue that we should have been, with social media, questioning everything we've been looking at and listening to for the last 10 years or 15 years, but we haven't been. There's only a portion of society that will question everything it looks at and everything it hears, whereas now that is becoming more necessary. It used to be, it used to be that when we did dramatic reconstruction for true crime shows or anything else, we used to put dramatic reconstruction, this is not real footage, or something over the top as an aston. And then very quickly, the populace, if you like, understood that within context, you weren't looking at a real crime scene. This was probably dramatic reconstruction. So we didn't need to put the aston on anymore. Where we are with AI at the moment is that we're still so new, still early on in this process, that we do have a responsibility. And I keep harking on about responsibility, because I think that if we are the people who are disseminating the information, we do have a responsibility, as we did before. And so I think we're now in a position where we say, right, we need to safeguard the people who are listening to our shows and watching our shows against sort of misinformation and against misunderstanding. And the same is true for social media as well, of course, where we see it, we need to call it out. But that won't always be the case, because society will find a balance where it recognizes subconsciously what is real and what is not. At the moment, we all refer to it as uncanny valley. And of course, we're getting ever closer to a point where it really is tricky to spot the tells. But I've obviously been ingrained in AI video for quite some time. And John, I think you were saying a second ago that you could recognize AI audio when you hear it, because there are little tells. And the more that we are exposed to AI media in whatever form it is, we will all pick up on what those tells are, because we're very, very good at spotting what's human and what isn't. And I don't think that is going to go away. There are going to be people who are more susceptible to it than others, but it's the same as scam callers. My my great aunt, who is 92, actually it's a bad example, because my great aunt is actually probably more switched on and clued up than I am. But there are other aged people who will fall for a telephone scam that a person from a younger generation would not, because there's a way of thinking that we get used to. And I think that is the route that AI generation is going to find. So anyway, yes, have a look at Zachary Star on Instagram.
I just add a little bit on that at History Channel. Whenever we did the reenactments, we would always say this is a reenactment, and we'd always go back to when somebody said why. We'd always be like Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. When he did that radio broadcast, he failed to say, I'm reading a book, and people literally ran out of their houses thinking the world was being invaded. So I think the responsibility can never be understated, that in any content, whether human, AI, etc., you have a responsibility to inform the consumer of what it is, whether it's a test, and that responsibility is becoming only greater as AI becomes more. Like I say, I'm always like, oh, I can tell if an email's AI. Today, I'm afraid I won't even be able to tell. I won't even be able to tell the audio or the video because it will get so good. And I think I'm pretty good. So I think the responsibility is really, really critical. Moving in this world responsibly is something that should be fundamental in every company who gets into this space.
Is it in a place, the video, and I know we need to really rush on, is it in a place though with the video where podcasters can use it for visual purposes, and it would work in a way where it would be almost seamless? Or would you have the tells there as well if podcasters used those in video versions of their shows?
Do you mean in terms of creating themselves as visual hosts, or do you mean in terms of almost?
Yeah, exactly, because that's what one of these companies, I can't remember who it was, Mark Ronick mentioned it on a podcast the other day, that there's this software where you can put yourself or a picture of yourself in there if you've got bad video, and it will animate you talking and those sorts of things. And I've not seen it actually in thing. But are we at that level where that's
not
really
not
there?
Let me jump in on this one, because I do a podcast every day called Palace Intrigue, and it's just a 10 to 15 minute audio podcast about what's going on in the royal family. And John, who can dive further into this and with video use, we thought this year we need some video aspect to this podcast. So I went to HeyGen. I uploaded a 2-minute video of me just sitting in front of the camera, mouthing nonsensical words. So it picked up the animations and the visual of me. I upload that to HeyGen. It processes it. And then every day now I give it my 15-minute audio file, upload it, and it comes back with me sitting in this same scene you see now, with today's podcast worded exactly like today's show is. You would pick up that it's AI because you know it's the same scene every day. But for the average listener, it sounds fine. It looks fine. It gives a visual representation. And more importantly, the only way we were able to do video is that it doesn't take up any more time than we have, because we're still two guys. So if we're going to get into the video world, it's got to be done in 60 seconds and it's got to look decent. We just can't afford the time, because we also haven't seen the return on investment with video yet.
So let me just clarify: the audio is Mark. It is today's podcast of Mark the human voicing it. The video is a simulation of Mark, but Mark was real at one point in the photo.
And I'm not transparent there. I don't say, "Hey, welcome to this show. This is the AI me," because it isn't, and it really is me. It really is my daily voice. It's just an AI combination of elements to save time.
There isn't a live version of that though, so you couldn't you couldn't do that on the fly. It has to be prepped.
What I would really love in video,
actually, it's not HeyGen doesn't have it, but there's a live one. But HeyGen's pretty good.
I haven't seen.
What I would really love to see in video for what we do is to be able to talk for 10 minutes about whether it's comedy or whether it's the Royals, and have a program put together a series of even stills or stock footage of elements that I am mentioning in the podcast, like today at Buckingham Palace, and up pops the keyword, there's the palace, and you zoom in and out, and King Charles did this, and there's a shot of him doing this. If it can put that together and give me a nice visual representation, that would be a great AI leap. Nobody seems to be doing that.
Well, except for me. So if you have a little Google of what we released last week, so we've done a deal with an archive library called Top Photo, and we've developed a system called Weaver, which looks at the archive library, looks at the script generation, and pulls the edit together for you.
I'm awaiting your promotional gift coupon.
Yes, of course. Yes, I'll send it in the post.
He's not kidding. Mark will have a video in my inbox by 6 p.m. of your service.
This is it, is the fact that we're not offering it as a product because it's our USP. So we're doing it as co-productions and partnerships, but we're not doing it as a product because it's taken an awful long time to get there, and we're now there's an opportunity. It's exactly that. So as we were saying before, it's about scale and economy of scale. So the productions need to be cheaper. Therefore, we need to find more cost-efficient ways of doing things. There is still a human in the loop at every single stage of this new production process with Weaver, but all of the timelines are much shorter. So a traditional documentary might take us 5 weeks to produce, and we can now produce it in 5 days. And that isn't to take any of the creative or any of the research out of it. It's just the fact that we're reducing the production process.
Benjamin, we need to talk later.
Yes, you're more than welcome.
Okay. Yeah, I find AI videos super cool. It's not there yet. It's in the silent film stage. The short clip, there's so many limitations, but it's making leaps and bounds. That's for sure. And for certain applications like HeyGen, a single talking head, it does pretty great at. The lips get a little unsynced. But if you wanted to try to create a feature-length movie, you could do it with AI. It's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you a lot of money, a lot of people. But in about a year, I think a kid will be able to ask AI to make a film of elephants flying around a room, and it will do it.
OpenAI, of course, is doing Critters at the moment. That's a $30 million movie. Again, talking about whether or not we're taking humans out of the process. There's no way that a $30 million movie is being made.
Craft services will still be needed.
Services will absolutely be needed. We can have the OpenAI discussion another day.
As you can tell, we could all chat for so much longer on this subject, but we've only got so much time. Okay, let's everybody give our contact details. William at Inception Point AI. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Please send me emails. We respond to everyone. I owe Mark you a response that you sent to info@InceptionPointAI, but I will respond. It just takes me time. And it will be a human response written by AI. So,
John at Caloroga.com, also pretty active on LinkedIn these days. You'll find me there and probably in one of your threads.
Yep. Ben?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest place to find me is LinkedIn. You'll find I'm probably pretty vocal about something, normally about copyright or AI or something new and exciting we've found to talk about. So LinkedIn's probably a good place, but if you want to find me on email, I will respond, maybe a little bit slowly sometimes. Fully human response at benjamin.field@deepfusionfilms.com.
Okay, and Mark?
And Mark Francis, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can reach me at mark@Caloroga, CALOROGA.com, and you can go to that website and see all our programming, including some really good Halloween stuff we have for this month. It's a Halloween pop-up channel, and Ghost Scary Stories are our big hits.
And if you go to themarvzone.org, you will find all of the contacts for myself. Anyway, thank you for this, guys. This was a great chat.
Super fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. And hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us.
This podcast is a proud member of Pod Nation Media Network.